Today we're going over the Update 9.9 new refines in Fire Emblem Heroes. This month we have the Choose Your Legend 7 units, skipping the line. In Part 1 we'll cover Brave Soren, female Corrin, Gullveig, and male Robin. In Part 2 we'll look at refines for Bertram, plus remixes for Legendary Veronica and Lord Askr. Up first, Brave Soren is a green infantry mage with high attack and res. Soren's Archsave Tome only got one update to its original effect. Every turn, Soren grants +6 field buffs and assign decoy to a support partner or the highest defense ally on the team within 2 spaces. This is a slaying weapon, and if within 3 spaces of an ally, Soren gets bonus stats equal to 5 plus the highest field buff on each stat between himself and allies within 3 spaces. Soren will get flat damage reduction equal to 20% res, and this plays off the last effect, which is just Dragon Wall. If Soren has higher res, he gets % damage reduction equal to the difference between res stats times 4. He needs to out-res by 10 or more to get 40% DR. Everything is the same here, except for the new flat DR effect. For the refined part, if above 25% HP, Soren inflicts -7 attack and res, exposure, and discord onto closest foes and foes within 2 spaces. In combat, Soren gets more stats equal to 5 plus the number of foes within 3 rows or columns times 2. If there are 3 enemies in range, Soren can get +11 to all stats. In addition, Soren neutralizes attack and res debuffs. He also deals true damage equal to 20% res. Overall, Soren has added some debuffing support to go with his assigned decoy gimmick. He gets a nice stat boost, neutralizes some debuffs, and gets 20% res as true damage / flat DR. Generally speaking, Soren's Dragon Wall effect can get pierced, but he does have new % options now. In terms of offense, the extra true damage plus exposure will work nicely with Soren's A skill, which can grant brave attacks. The catch is that Soren needs to out-res by 10 or more, and he either needs to initiate or have a ranged foe initiate. At least Soren gets a lot more stats now, and he's added some res debuffs, plus he gets his own debuff neutralization. Soren's Refine doesn't massively alter his game plan, but we do have a lot more skills he can utilize. Generally, Soren's going to give Savior to his support partner or high defense teammates. They will cover Soren's low defense. If you want to tank magical hits, Soren can use Ice Wall for 40% unpierceable DR. If foes don't pierce his old Dragon Wall effect, he can get up to 64% damage reduction, and if you run Lagu's Friend, then Soren's got 40% res as flat DR too. You will need times Pulse 4 to charge Ice Wall every fight, but if you only fight once per phase, then you can use Pulse of Ploy instead. If Soren has 10 more res, he fires back with a DR piercing Ice Wall plus brave attacks. Soren did use Magic No Follow-Up before, so you're gonna need to replace that. For another build, you can instead go more aggressive. Flare is nice, but Magic Light and Frost Moon are DR piercing specials. Soren can use Pulse Deploy again for passive cooldown or Creation Pulse for -2 instant cooldown. Silence Wards are really good because A, more resistance, B, -1 instant cooldown, and C, Soren can give Null-Seed Disrupt to his savior partner. For B skills, Magic No Follow is fun to keep, but you could also try Low Finish, Resonance, or maybe Havoc for extra supporting. On the new Gladiator banner, Favor seems really interesting, another way to get -1 cooldown without fighting, plus more support. There is definitely room for mixing and matching some of these skills. Soren could charge Ice Wall with his brave attacks, so you don't have to use it with Lagu's Friend only. Probably still want to be wary of facing physical damage foes though. Overall, Brave Soren gets some res related effects to win res checks, and he adds some support to pair with his assigned decoy, though it's not anything too crazy. Now, you can opt for more support skills, or you could try to just stack true damage and cooldown to go with his brave attacks. Next, Brave Female Corrin's a colorless armored dragon who is pretty fast. Corrin's Vallastone applies Divine Vein Stone within 2 spaces after acting. She's got Slaying, and if above 25% health, Corrin inflicts -5 debuffs, gains full no follow-up, and has 30% regular DR. New to the base weapon is 20% speed as flat damage reduction. Like Soren, added flat DR is good, but no other changes. Corrin only applying her Divine Vein during the player phase can be a bit of a problem if you're facing a lot of young Camillas. Now for the Refine, this time at start of either phase, if within 2 spaces of an ally, Corrin gives Draconic Hex and the debuff neutralization status to herself and those allies. In combat, Corrin gets +11 to all stats if she triggers Savior, or she has 3 allies within 3 rows or columns. She will also get 7 true damage and has the regular res checking Scal effect. Overall, Corrin's going to continue to try and overpower foes with pure stat stacking. This can be oppressive, but should Corrin get outsped, then things are going to fall apart pretty fast, and stat buffing / debuffing is just so volatile these days. Now, Draconic Hex comes from the dual young Corrins, and it basically tries to inflict -10 to all stats. This only happens if the foe doesn't have debuffs active. If they do, the effects are going to be weaker, but say the foe neutralizes their debuffs, now Draconic Hex will reactivate fully. This Corrin ideally wants to use Savior on her stone terrain for extra defense res plus flat DR. Her unique A skill is still decent if you want distant counter. -7 debuffs with 7 flat damage reduction isn't that bad from the A slot. Continuing with Corrin's playstyle, she already has attack and speed far save with armored flow to get unpierceable % DR against ranged threats. Counter Roar would give Corrin more regular % DR along with some damage reflection, but if you're afraid of DR piercing, then you can sub it out for a modern armor skill. One option is Clever Fighter, or technically an upgrade would be Edge Scales. True damage, 10 flat DR, and Corrin's tougher to double. Ideally, Corrin only wants to get hit once. She has built-in Scowl now to avoid specials, and if they do trigger special, then Armored Flow is going to trigger. If you face brave attacks, you can use Twin Save to trigger the % DR twice, but Corrin wouldn't get the effect if the first hit is just a regular basic. If you want protection immediately, you need to get outside cooldown recharging, or you run Counter Fighter for minus instant cooldown, the Goose Friend style. You could also use Shield Fighter, but then you have to run a defensive special, possibly with Emblem Marth. If you can avoid quad attacks, then Shield Fighter would definitely be annoying. Usually quad attacks are the weakness for these slower Shield Fighter armors, although there are more units nowadays who can block defensive specials entirely, so that's still a bit risky. For other skills, Corrin can run Briar Save or lower/higher ground for Warp Bubble. If you want to get double Scowl, then Scowling Fighter is a dragon option. That skill also has Breath type cooldown, which would be nice to charge Armored Flow. If you want a % DR against melee and ranged, you could use Dragon's Roar, although I would also think about using Dragon Flame. This 4 cooldown Ignis special with 30% max HP healing is still only on the Ancient Tiki, but on the enemy phase it doesn't require a stat check. If you can get some extra cooldown or maybe run Emblem Marth's Ring for double slaying, you could get a much stronger burst special to run with Counter Fighter or Scowling Fighter. In general, Corrin wants more of all of her stats, although speed and res will be the focus to not get doubled and then to activate Scowl. You could replace Realms United if you don't need distant counter and you want to run an Attuned Echo skill. We didn't get any speed variants of the Twin or Briar Save skills yet, so either you need to wait for that or you just run any other stat variant. For Sacred Seals, Wily Fighter can be used even if it's just for the low effect. Special Fighter can also give Breath type cooldown and Guard, which Corrin wouldn't mind. Overall, Brave Corrin's Refine is mainly about catching up in stats and adding Scowl plus flat DR. Draconic Hex and debuff neutralization is really nice for the team, but you definitely want to add more stat support from like Igdenir or Andy Mart type buffing. Our third refine is for Brave Gullveig. This version is a blue flying mage with high attack and speed. Gullveig's Tome got one small change. This weapon has Conto 1, Slaying, and if initiating or Gullveig has an active bonus, she gets bonus stats equal to 5 plus the number of turns it's been times 2. For up to 5 turns, Gullveig will get extra stats, which will cap out at plus 10 total. For other effects, Gullveig is going to have 20% speed as true damage and Phonophop to go at her high speed. Basically, the turn scaling stat boost has added defensive res to the previous attack and speed boss. For the actual refine, for foes within 3 rows or columns, Gullveig inflicts -5 stats, neutralizes their field balls, and makes enemies take 10 true damage in combat. After Kanto is triggered, even if stopped by Kanto control, and if Gullveig already entered combat, she can get another action and refresh her Kanto effect. For actual battle, if healthy, Gullveig will get more stats equal to the number of foes within 3 rows or columns times 2. 3 foes will equal plus 6 stats. Last, Gullveig gets 7 flat damage reduction. The most interesting part of this refine is that Gullveig gets a third action, assuming you're going to keep her unique B skill. After you fight, Gold Unwinding's action is going to trigger. If Gullveig triggers Kanto, she will get the third action from the refine, which refreshes Kanto again. Do note, the refine extra action doesn't self-inflict gravity or anything. For other perks, Gullveig's got a long-range debuff for -5 stats, low, and 10 true damage. She will get those effects herself, and generally, the refine just added a bunch of stats, true damage, and flat DR. With Gold Unwinding, Gullveig gets 60% damage reduction, but only for 1 hit. All those brave attacking tanks, or just any DR piercing, is pretty much going to KO her easily. Gullveig needs to survive to get her extra actions, so if you don't think 60% regular DR is good enough, you can replace it. They have their own counters, but you could also go for Desperation or Wind/Water Sweep. With the Refine, Gullveig will still get 2 actions, so this is an option. Like before, Flared Sparrow is meant to deploy on the first fight, then Gullveig fights an enemy on the Flame Tile for extra damage. You can still use it, although Breath of Life and other effects pretty much hard counter that instant damage. Now instead of attack and speed Oath 4 for self-buff plus warping, you can use Air Orders 4 to get charge. That could be fun for extending Gullveig's attack range. For other skills, you can use Slice with Sparrow, maybe the new Aria. If you wanted to run AoE specials, then Verge/Life or Death can be used for flat stats. Gullveig can make use of the new Shackle skills plus Resonance is a deer piercing option. Technically, Far Trace for Kanto is better than Kanto 1 only. For specials, Magic Light's a deer piercing Luna. You could try Glimmer Askr or maybe Miracle, though that will require a lot more cooldown. Speaking of cooldown, Silence Ward can help with that, plus assist allies. With the Refine's effects, you could also spec more into supportive skills like Shackle or Silence Ward. The tech can also get exposure to stack true damage. I don't have it listed, but again, I would also maybe consider the new favorite skills on the Gladiator banner. Passive cooldown, and unless I'm misunderstanding, potentially 19 or more true damage, which is kinda crazy. The main issue would be reactivating it for Gullveig to use herself. Regardless, while Gullveig did get some support perks, she's still mainly a glass cannon mage with extra actions. 2 now. Her regular % survival method is risky, but she did get a lot of extra stats if enemies can't pierce through. In terms of offense, nothing super fancy besides good old attack and speed stacking with more true damage. Last refine for part 1, and the Seawhale 7 group is for Brave Male Robin. He is our Speedy Sword Master type unit of the group, but Robin may actually want to focus on his defense after this. Deliverer's Brand gets plus 3 speed. If above 25% health, Robin gets plus 5 to all stats, 40% DR on first attacks with an S, and then 20% speed as flat DR against all attacks. Robin will get full tempo effects, and if he uses a 3 cooldown or higher offensive special, he will get full DR piercing. If this special is Glowing Ember, Bonfire, or Ignis, then Robin gets adaptive damage. Like the others, Robin gets 20% speed as flat DR as a base upgrade. His regular % DR effect now covers brave hits, which is good. For the actual refine, Robin gains Pass. Each turn, Robin inflicts -7 speed and res, Sabotage, and Frozen onto the closest foes within 2 spaces. If he initiates or is near an ally, Robin can get plus 11 to all stats if he has 3 allies within 3 rows or columns. Last, Robin gets 20% speed as true damage. Robin getting Frozen is probably the biggest surprise in this batch. It feels pretty random, but it's a powerful effect that can alter the speed roll. Frozen makes it tougher to double Robin's team, and Robin's team has an easier time doubling back. If your team has higher defense, then every point over will count as plus 2 to the speed roll in your favor. With just 10 or more defense than the enemy, Frozen makes it so the enemy now has to outspeed by 35 or more to double, and Robin just needs to be within 25 speed of the enemy to double himself. The scaling is pretty scary. Usually, Frozen is on units with higher defense and speed like Diamant, so it's kinda weird to see you out on Robin, and then instead of debuffing defense, Robin debuffs res. Unless that is a mistake, I assume the res debuffs are meant to go with the adaptive damage. Now, looking at who is on the new banner, I am almost certain they did this because Gladiator Crom inflicts attack and defense debuffs. With Brave Robin, you cover all 4 stats, and you got Sabotage, plus Crom is more of a unit you kinda expect to see Frozen used for. Now, backing up a bit, sadly Robin didn't update his adaptive damage condition. Diamant ditched Boulder, and they didn't even have the decency to add that to the list for Robin. The original effect is supposed to be a callback to Ignis being Robin's Grandmaster class skill, but if you just want juicy unpierceable % DR, then you may have to ignore this ability. It's pretty disappointing. Robin did get a simple but strong new perk though from the Refine. If you look at his unique C skill, Robin hands out Rally Spectrum, which is a status that gives plus 5 to all stats and -2 instant cooldown before attacking, or -1 if you have Sling/Brave hits. Robin can then 5 space warp to any ally with Rally Spectrum. With the new pass effect, Robin can be a nice partner to follow up on initiations. You could also just run Emblem Celica to warp in anyway. For playstyle, special choice would dictate a lot. If you want to run Gust, then Robin needs actual speed for its speed check. This makes Frozen less important since Robin essentially has to outspeed anyway. Now, instead of trying to charge Gust before getting hit, Robin can take the initiative, maybe with his new pass warping. Rally Spectrum plus Tempo means Gust will charge on his first attack. You tank the counter with the % DR and then fire Gust on the follow-up. Ideally, you want no follow-up here, so perfect attack and speed or some support of that would be nice. You could use finish skills for the healing and true damage. If you run Potent Finish, Robin can get a 3rd attack, which means more healing. Potent speed roll effect also does stack with Frozen, and even though Gust builds want speed, you can actually use Frozen to cancel enemy potent effects. Honestly, it's a pretty good use case considering how common that's becoming. For alterations, you can run Boulder, stack all defense, then rely on Frozen for extra speed if needed. You can also use Haze Slice for pure initiating. Its own -1 cooldown plus Rally Spectrum means an instant proc, so finish skills can get the more uses out of it, and then with Potent, you might actually get a second trigger even if it's the 40% weaker hit. Do note though, Robin's got no way out of deep initiations. Gust and Boulder can at least protect on the enemy phase potentially. Speaking of protection, Arch Rival might be a stronger choice. 5 cooldown since no slaying, but its 40% DR doesn't need any stat checks. It works on both phases, and it works against brave hits. Robin will also add guard to his tempo effects, which hey, we'll take. If you face green enemies, Arch Rival plus Rally Spectrum gives -1 instant cooldown, find 1 more cooldown to proc this special instantly, another potential reason to pair up with Mr. Crom. You can mix and match a lot of these skills. For any distant counter setup, you can use Nelcia Void. Gus plus Lagu's Loyalty ideally want times Pulse or Faith, which we can't run here. Instead, you can still get the pre-charge with other support like maybe Female Robin's Hush Spectrum. Now, if you still believe in regular %DR, Gambit's okay, but be warned, it's kinda risky nowadays. Gonna sound like a broken record, but Favor does seem hilariously strong, so I'll keep bringing it up as a support option. In fact, if Robin's jealous of Masked Marth getting a little too chummy with Crom, you can get Attack and Speed Favor, Gust, and Perfect Attack and Speed from Marth. Favor builds out of Link B skills, so it's a very easy pickup altogether. That'll be it for part 1 of the update 9.9 refines featuring the CML7 crew. If I'm being completely honest, not the most insane upgrades, but that's kinda what happens when you jump the refine line by like 2 years. There's just not that big of a gap in power yet, although there are still some nice surprises here. For the next part, we're going to cover Bertram, and then the remixes for Lord Askr plus Legendary Veronica. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.